Before you go, how many shots do you think you heard over how long a time?
When he walked in, at least 20 to 30. 20 to 30. The second round of shots that he shot when we were outside by the garbage can, at least 15 to 20.
So over a period of what, 5 minutes?
It would be a couple minutes the first time he emptied his magazine. And then we got out maybe 10 minutes later. 10 minutes later, he emptied another magazine, I think. Yeah.
And did he seem to be aiming at anybody in particular? Was he looking for anybody in particular, or was he just trying to shoot as many people as he could?
I think he was just trying to shoot as many people as he could. You know what I mean?
So yeah,
I didn't
get his
see him
motivation.
aiming at anyone. And he was rapid fire. Like, it was a semi-auto gun, but he was rapid fire. And he didn't look like he was aiming at anyone. He just looked like he walked in and started shooting people. That's what I saw, and that's what I heard. Because if he was aiming at someone, he would have shot them, and then it would have been over. He would have took his own life.
Hey, Mitchell, we can't thank you enough for the time and the insight, especially with your buddy hit. You're trying to save other people and fighting for your own life, and you're able to tell the country what actually happened in Thousand Oaks.
Did you see the sheriff sergeant get hit?
No, sir. Actually, I wish I knew when he went in, but I did not know about that. I just found out about that, and that's kind of disappointing to me.
Mitchell, Mitchell, you a college student?
Yes, ma'am.
Where do you go to school?
Moore Park.
Well, thank you so much for your hero this morning. You said you broke the window, you escorted some of the girls out, and your friend was right behind you. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing your story with us.
How many kids from your college were there last night, Mitchell?
No idea. Probably a lot.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, Mitchell. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.
So this thing will fold at 11:20 local time out on the West Coast in Thousand Oaks, which is in proximity of many locations. If you're in Pepperdine, you cut through the mountains and you're right there in 25 minutes. If you're in the Thousand Oaks area, you get on the 101 and you're right there in a very short time. On a Wednesday night, I imagine he said there were bigger crowds in the summer, but a pretty good crowd that night.
Well, a lot of people are just waking up here on the East Coast at 6:30 here on the East Coast. And if you're just waking up, you probably don't know this information yet. There was a mass shooting at a bar in California at 11:20 last night. The bar is called Borderline Bar and Grill. It was college country night, and it was line dancing night. There were several hundred people inside the bar, according to witnesses. And 11 victims were killed when the police walked into the bar. Then they saw the suspect, they say, was dead as well. And then a sergeant was escorted out. He was unresponsive, taken to the hospital, and he did pass away.
Sheriff Jeff Dean has already held a press conference. The 41-year vet had to discuss the death of a sergeant that was a workout buddy of his and a good friend. He also had to pick up the phone and call the family, his wife and child, and say, Ron Helis has died. So we're going to get details on that, but he was the first one in, it seems, and was on the receiving end of fire from the gunman.
That's right. They're trying to piece the picture together. There were hundreds of people in attendance. The police are trying to talk to as many people as possible. So they're getting eyewitness reports. There are a lot of stories out on the internet right now. Jonathan Hunt has been there for the last couple of hours. Jonathan, we just heard from an eyewitness by the name of Mitchell Hunter, who said that he could have sworn the guy popped off some smoke bombs as he came in, but he also described what it sounded like a handgun of some sort, but it also sounded like it was able to fire a large number of shots at a time.
Yeah, it seems like it was a semi-automatic handgun, and that is the only weapon that the Sheriff Dean has been talking about so far. I want to bring in now, though, Steve, another eyewitness. This is John Hedge. He was right in the entranceway when the shooting started. And, John, tell me just what you saw, what happened.
Sorry, I'm losing my voice. So, I mean, I was sitting at the tables nearest to the front door. and I hear some guns, or I hear some loud pop, 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 and I didn't know what it was. I thought it was a joke. All of a sudden, I see my stepdad dive to the ground, and he says, hide, hit the deck, what are you doing? Get to the ground, sort of thing, yelling, and so I dive, and I look up, and there's a gunman taking fire. The bouncer was already down at that point. He was pointing it behind the front desk, the cash register. And
you got a good look at the shooter. Tell me what you saw, what he looked like.
Yeah, he had a full beard. He was wearing a black hat, a black jacket on. He had darker skin. He couldn't have been over 30.
Did he say anything?
He didn't say anything. The only thing you hear is screaming and people, just yelling.
And you told me earlier he, for sure, from what you saw, was using smoke grenades?
Yeah, I left when I got out of the front door. I went back to see if my stepdad was okay or where he was, or if there was anybody trying to get out. And I saw some smoke grenades being thrown and more gunshots. He was behind the desk, around the desk at that point, and that's when I heard my stepdad yelling, I'm over here, like we need to get out of here, and there's people running all over the place.
And how did you get out?
Well, when I got up, I was gonna go run to the bathroom to go hide, and I saw that he had left the front door area, and there was maybe couple people that ran out. So I just ran as fast as I could to the front door, and thank God I made it out okay. He was right there. I mean, me and my stepdad were the closest people besides the bouncer and the people at the front desk to the front door.
And did you see the sheriff's deputy who was shot?
No, I didn't. But
he was one of the first law enforcement officer through the door. Was shot too and died in the hospital a short time ago.
So when we were leaving in our car, that's when the sheriff said we're arriving. So I mean, they're the real heroes. If they're not there, God, who knows what happens.
And your stepdad is okay too.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, John, well, thank you for talking to us. We're glad you got out okay. Thank you very much. Horrifying witness accounts that we're hearing again and again this morning, and very emotional accounts, obviously. We heard just now from the sheriff who was paying tribute to that Sheriff Sergeant Ron Healis, a 29-year veteran of the Sheriff's Department here in Ventura County. He used to work out with Sheriff Dean, and Sheriff Dean was very emotional when talking about him. Listen here to the sheriff.
Is it 13? Okay,
I
guess
think we were waiting
back.
for a soundbite. Jonathan, a question for you. With your eyewitness right there, regarding the smoke bombs, when we heard from Sheriff Dean a little while ago, he did not know, he could not confirm whether or not any smoke bombs were used, because there are some stories that the guy walked in and threw some smoke bombs and started shooting people. But your eyewitness, once again, went back to the smoke bombs, as did our eyewitness. What do you think happened?
Yeah. Well, it certainly seems from what we are hearing from these eyewitnesses that some sort of smoke devices were going off at the time. We'll obviously have to wait for the full investigation and for sheriff's deputies to confirm the sequence of events here. But something was happening, according to John Hedge, we just spoke to there, according to other eyewitnesses. And John, remember, was standing right at the front where the shooter came in, and he said without doubt the shooter was throwing what John described as smoke grenades. And as the sheriff himself said in that news conference a short time ago that you took live, Steve, if there were indeed smoke grenades being used, then that speaks to a greater degree of planning. Walking in with a handgun and firing at these young people who were enjoying a night out at the Borderline Bar and Grill is one thing. If you're going in armed with that handgun, possibly other weapons, we don't know yet, plus smoke grenades, then obviously you have given a lot of thought to precisely what you are about to do. But this will all be part of the investigation. We're hearing various descriptions of the shooter himself. We heard from John. He thought he's around 30 years old, dressed pretty much completely in black, wearing eyeglasses, said he had a full beard. But we don't know the identity of the shooter yet. He is dead inside the Borderline Bar and Grill, so you can be very confident that sheriff's deputies will have an identity very shortly, if they do not already, and have just not chosen to share it with us yet. But we will know a lot more about the shooter in the coming hours, so there is no point speculating on who he might be, where he might have come from, what his motives might have been at the moment. We'll get all that information in due course. And one other thing, one other note of caution on these eyewitnesses: obviously everybody who was in there comes out traumatized. They come out having gone through a terrifying scene where they have been gripped by terror, flushed with adrenaline. So some of the things you hear as they come out do not prove, as history tells us in these incidents, to be entirely accurate. That's why we want to give the eyewitnesses themselves the chance to say what they say. We're only reporting what we know for sure, and what we know for sure is that there was this terrible incident, 11:20 p.m. local time last night. The first 911 calls came in. Within 3 minutes, a sheriff's deputy and members of the California Highway Patrol were here.